Have you ever seriously pictured a world where we could build a house not in months, but maybe in a matter of days? Where these beautiful, complex walls are just printed straight from a computer file? Well, this isn't some far-off science fiction anymore. It's a revolution that's happening right now in construction. And today, we're going to dive deep into it using Chapter 9 of the book Construction 4.0 as our guide.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to explore the big picture vision, what this 3D printed future even looks like. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how we're actually building with layers. After that, we'll talk about the incredible promise this all holds, but we'll also hit it with a much-needed reality check. And finally, we'll look at the blueprint for what's coming next.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, the 3D printed future. We're starting with the big idea, the one that could fundamentally change everything we think we know about building.
Really think about this question for a second. What if you could just get rid of months of complicated framing and formwork and replace it all with one massive robotic arm? Just imagine it, moving gracefully, guided by a digital model, squeezing out this special material to build the walls of a house, layer by layer, right in front of you. That is the incredible core concept we're going to unpack today.
So that's the big idea, but how in the world does it actually work? What are we really building with here? Let's get into it.
To really get this, there's one key term you gotta know: additive manufacturing. Now think about it. Most traditional construction is subtractive. You start with, say, a big block of stone or a piece of wood, and you cut away everything you don't need. Additive manufacturing, it's the complete opposite. You start with nothing, and you add material only and exactly where you need it, building something up from scratch, one layer at a time.
And the process, at its heart, is pretty straightforward. It all starts with a 3D model on a computer. That digital blueprint gets sent over to the printer, which then pushes out the special material through a nozzle. Honestly, you can just think of it like a giant robotic tube of toothpaste. It follows the design perfectly, laying down one layer, then the next, until a wall literally materializes out of a digital plan.
So what's in that toothpaste? Well, right now, concrete-based mixes are the most common thing, but that is just the beginning. The real game changer, as our source points out, is this idea of eco-innovation. Can you imagine creating printable building materials from industrial waste? Literally turning pollution into homes. Now that's where this technology gets truly, truly exciting.
Okay, Section 3, promise of a new era. We know what it is, we know how it works, but why is it such a big deal? What makes this tech so compelling for the future of how we build?
And this is where the advantages just pop right off the page. Traditional building loves straight lines and 90-degree angles because they're just easier to make. But with additive manufacturing, architectural creativity is just unleashed. If you can design it on a computer, you can probably print it. We're talking about complex, organic, beautiful shapes. And it's not just about looks. By putting material only where it's needed, you basically eliminate waste. And the potential for speed through automation is just enormous.
The opportunities here are so much bigger than just walls. This tech brings a whole new level of automation to job sites, which in turn creates a demand for totally new skills in robotics and digital design. It gives architects this incredible creative freedom they've never had before. And yeah, for the right kinds of projects, it can be way more cost-effective than doing things the old-fashioned way.
All right, Section 4, a reality check. The promise is massive. I get it. But the technology is nowhere near perfect. So it's time to ground ourselves in the very real, very tough challenges that engineers are wrestling with today.
Our source material really nails one of the biggest challenges. It says if the vertical inclination exceeds the ability of one layer to overhang the next, the layers can collapse. Think about it. You're fighting gravity with a heavy, wet material. If you build too fast or try to make too steep of an angle, the whole thing can just slump over and fail. It is a very delicate dance between speed and stability.
So, how do you solve a super futuristic problem like that? Well, sometimes the answer is decidedly low-tech. As the source points out, the solution often involves mixing the new with the old. You end up using traditional supports and shoring to give that printed structure the stability it needs to set up properly. And there are still some other major puzzles to solve. The source actually calls getting the material mix just right, not too runny, not too stiff, a black art. And then you've got the challenge of horizontal structures. Printing vertical walls is one thing, but how do you print a roof in the middle of the air? Without support, the material would just fall right to the ground. Plus, a house is more than just walls, right? You still have to figure out how to put in windows, doors, plumbing, and wiring.
So, Section 5, Blueprint for Tomorrow.
Given the incredible promise and these very real-world challenges, what's the path forward? How does this technology actually become a mainstream part of construction?
You know, the most critical insight for the future might not even be about the technology itself, it's about the process. You can't just design a regular house and then decide, hey, let's print it. For this to really work, the architects, the contractors, and the printing specialists all have to be in the same room collaborating from day one, designing the building specifically to be printed. It's a fundamental shift in how we approach a project.
And that really brings us to the ultimate question. The challenges are real, no doubt about it, but the momentum here is just undeniable. This technology is absolutely set to transform how we create the spaces we live in. So the real question isn't if this will happen, but what is the impact going to be when it does? How will this ability to quickly and creatively print our buildings reshape our cities, our architecture, and maybe even our society? That is the future that's being printed, one layer at a time.